So you really get to know cats in their natural habitat. Everyone who knew me thought I'd lost my mind.
Hello, everybody. Good day. No matter what time of day you might be listening to this, I hope you are ready for another really fun and cool episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast. Today, I, your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, have a chance to meet with someone super fun. You are going to love her. You're going to be engaged. We've only been hanging out for a few minutes, and I can already tell she loves what she does, and she's just making such a big difference in the lives of cats. Now, that also transmits, of course, to people, because I have a cat, and while I don't have like 7 cats or anything, I have one cat. I love little Isabella, so give a shout out to Isabella. She'll like to hear that because she listens every week, you know. And so cats have been in my life for a long time now, and they are amazing. So we are going to hear from our next guest, Miss Leila Qari. She's going to talk to us about her founding and her operating. She's the founder and executive director of the Denver Cat Company, as well as the Denver Cat Rescue. So if you're a cat fan, you're going to want to listen to this. You're going to want to engage your heart, engage your mind, and you're going to want to share this with someone who's also a lover of cats when we're done. So sit back, hang out, and we're going to talk with Leila right now. So Leila, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
All right. So I want to talk, first of all, a little bit before we go too far into all the great things that the Denver Cat Company is doing, and looking at the website and checking it out. I'm like, I've never heard of any concept like this. So I want to get to that. But first, a little bit about your background as a sneak peek. You weren't always involved with the cat rescue.
That's right. No.
Tell us about your background. Where'd you start?
So actually, as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And before that, as a paralegal, although that's a very long time ago now. I actually haven't practiced law in 8.5 years, which is when I founded the Cat Cafe, Denver Cat Company. But I went to law school over at DU and graduated, and actually graduated third in my class. That I thought was going to be my career. I was really into it. I loved the practice of law, or I thought I did. So I started at Sherman and Howard. I practiced commercial litigation. And then I switched firms, practiced at Lewis Roca Rothker Burr Christie, and realized, you know what, this is not I've tried 2 different firms now. It's not the, place I'm at. It's just not for me. I was 32 at the time, and I was realizing that, your 30s are kind of the best time of your life. In some ways, you start to really come into your own. You really figure out what you like, how you can, make your way in the world, and what your life is going to look like. That's when it starts to kind of gel and come together, after the confusion of your 20s. And I was like, I don't want to be behind a desk. I want to be with people. I want to be with animals. I want to do something that seems to be making an impact in the world. The Cat Cafe was a concept that was just floating around that time. This is 2014. And there was a pop-up that Purina did in New York City. And I saw an article about it, and it looked like heaven to me.
And you were still practicing attorney at that time?
I was.
Now, are you a cat person? Do you have have you always had cats? Like white cats versus dogs versus iguanas or anything else?
Always had cats. And, I really like animals, but cats are really big where I grew up. And this is in Saudi Arabia. So, again, a world away, a long time ago. And the Middle East tends to really like cats because the Prophet Muhammad liked cats.
Really?
Yeah, so,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so they just let them breed wild. They don't do anything because, it's like internationally, we don't have as much of a pet culture as we do in America. So they're just on the streets. So I grew up just adopting stray cats off the streets, and it was just my passion, and I love them so much. And I've always had a pet cat. I'd never worked in the rescue field, though. I just always had been around them and obsessed with them. But,
and did you... What got you on the path to being a lawyer in the first place? So you've always loved cats, this passion for cats. Was there a thing was it a familial thing? Like, hey, I want you to grow up and be super successful and do this and that. Like, how did the law school thing get started?
That's partly cultural, yes. There's this drive among South Asians to, be in the professions, to do,
yes.
To be successful, to go to, have higher education and so on. So that was part of it. But what really got me there was by chance I ended up working in the legal field in administrative roles. So my first job in the States, I immigrated when I was 21. My first job was as a file clerk in a law firm, a maritime law firm in San Francisco. And from there I became a legal secretary, and then I became a paralegal. And then, the lawyers who were employing me and mentoring me were like, you really need to go to law school. You're smart, and now you're 25 years old. You should be, soon the attorneys you're working for are going to be younger than you, and you shouldn't be in that position, so you should go to law school. So they encouraged me to go, and it felt like the right next logical step. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with lawyers. They tend to be really smart people, as I'm sure you know from your work here.
Yes,
that lawyers are just smart and interesting. And so I thought, what, why not? Of course I should. And so I went to law school, enjoyed it, did well there, and thought that was going to be my career. It just felt like the right fit. And of course, it's lucrative, and it's, it has potential for a really, productive life that you can actually help people, you can do good work, et cetera, et cetera. It all seemed right. But I did not realize just how much the practice of law would stress me out at the same time as not engaging me.
Yes, the double whammy of badness.
It's so hard.
Yes.
And especially at, if you're not working directly with people or with life-changing issues, if you're not doing something, say sexy like civil rights law, which even then there's a level of stress there, and, you start feeling like a cog in the system instead of really changing anything. You start seeing the same. I've worked, I have friends who are lawyers in nonprofit world and the criminal defense world, and they're still frustrated because it's the stress of it does not ever seem to abate, and the difference you're making doesn't ever seem to translate into real world change, right? It's because the issues are systemic. So it's gonna run up against that issue of feeling like, am I really doing anything important, even if I'm stressed all the time and doing my best and, making small differences here and there. So that was a part that I didn't see until I actually became an attorney. And as far as animals go, I always thought that was something you did in your private life, like, in your personal interest situation. It's not something that you can translate to necessarily a career.
A career, yeah.
I mean, although there are careers in
it's interesting to me. I think this is worth us camping on for just a minute. When someone decides to pivot the way you did, there's a lot of emotion to it. And I have a different story, but a similar theme, where I was a chiropractor. I got hurt in sports in high school, figured I wanted to go to chiropractic school, ended up having some really successful practices for close to 2 decades. And then I decided that I wanted to do something different. So then it went into, chiropractic franchising, and then opening a gym as part, kind of a thing with that. And then now ended up at the law firm doing the leadership roles here, as COO and strategic planning and this, that, and the other thing. And it was hard for me to give up the use of my hands as my primary tool. And I still get to do it every day. I don't know if you still get to use your legal mind in your own business and stuff, but I get to treat all the team members here. I have a table in the office. I treat family and friends. So it's not like I gave the gift away that I had, but I remember so many patients telling me, "Are you sure? Man, you've made such a difference." There's a lot of angst. Did you feel that as you transition from being third in your class and being at these kind of almost like, super power law firms, and then going this way? Like, what was the emotion of it? Because people might be listening going, I'm not motivated. I'm not fulfilled. I need to pivot. What advice? Yes.
Okay. So it's not always an option for everyone. So first of all, so lucky to be able to pivot, right? Because some people are just pigeonholed. Once they learn or train in a certain trade or a certain direction, they just have to be there because that's their skill set. That's their education. I did have, some agitation, some, sadness and some sense of loss around losing that career path, because it is a very privileged career path to be on, to be able to work for top law firms with the top lawyers in the state, to be able to, work at that high level, coming from where I did, especially, an immigrant from Pakistan. And, it's like, I could never have imagined this being my future. And then I gave it up. So there was definitely that sense of loss attached to it, and maybe even a bit of failure at some points, because I had pictured myself becoming a partner in a law firm, being a high power, especially as a woman. I was like, this is not an area in which you find a lot of women who are from my background. Even if you do find women, they tend to be white women, and not that, there's anything wrong with any of that, but it's just in terms of diversity in Colorado, especially, I was a rare breed. So I gave that up, and that did feel like a bit of a loss and a sense of failure around it. At the same time, for me, the highest end has always been meaningful work. That's been a very important value of mine, because I don't have children. I don't intend to have children. And, if you're making a living and you have a family life that fulfills you, that's a good balance. You don't need your work to fulfill you. I need my work to fulfill me. So for me, it was a price worth paying to find something that really called to me and that, was just more meaningful in how much I wanted to put towards it of my soul and my, day to day. Like if you're thinking all the time about work, you want it to be about something you care about. You don't want it to be about something that is fatiguing and stressful without being meaningful. So for me, it was also a luxury to be able to, walk away from that 6-figure paycheck, to say that that's fine. I'm going to give that up and I'm going to try something that has a higher risk of failure, of a, high risk of not being what I think is going to be, but I'm going to try because I'm young and I'm free. I don't have the obligation to raise a family and provide for them. So it's a very different set of circumstances for everyone. And I'm very sensitive to that because people come to me with that question all the time and say, what advice would you give me for being unfulfilled in my career? What should I do? And the first question is, what's possible for you? And then also, very importantly, what else is your passion? What is calling out to you? Is there anything in your mind? I've been talking to people for some years, who are attorneys who want to pivot away from it, because it is a profession that has, a lot of attorneys are not practicing attorneys. It is a profession that leads to other things. And many of them are like, I don't know what I want to do. And that's a very big starting point. You have to know what you want to do. You have to at least have some inkling of what's going to be more passionate, more interesting for you to do. That's not your current profession. And then move in that direction, whether that means getting another, graduate degree, whether that means, starting on a different path that you can break into because you have some kind of an in with someone. If you want to go into your own, personal entrepreneurial ventures, like all of that would really depend on your very specific circumstances. And then how much can you afford to give up your current career, whatever that is,
with your money, your responsibilities, your bills, all the rest.
Yeah, exactly. Are you in a position where you have enough savings or you have enough comfort and you level with a partner or somebody else who's supporting you that you can afford to do
Speaking of that, how was your family because of the drive, and I don't know if they sent you to America as a young female to go tackle the world and get your education? And if so, their expectations were high, you fulfilled their expectations, exceeded them, and then you decide to take a whole different direction. We'll call it pivot. Sometimes parents and family members don't consider pivoting, right? They consider it quitting. And so how was your family with that? Were they supportive? And what was their thoughts like? Wait, what? You're going from high-powered attorney to cat rescue? Tell me about that.
Oh, they're so confused. No, it's actually really funny because, my parents never really had much of a say in my direction. I was very much a very willful, self-directed kind of person. I wanted to do what I wanted to do and I was going to do it. They were proud of the lawyer path, but they didn't really play a role in making that happen. That was still my choice and my direction. I paid for it myself. They weren't really involved in any of that decision. When I did quit that and start the cat rescue, my dad's first thought was, why would you do such a thing? And everybody I knew, even here, my mentors, my law school professors, as well as my former lawyer bosses, everyone who knew me thought I'd lost my mind. I don't think they wanted to say that. They didn't want to say that out loud, but they were basically like, yep, Leila's lost her mind. She's going to crash and burn. So
she'll be back.
I think a few people actually said that.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I was like, I'm a very forward momentum kind of person. I move forward. I never look back. And even if the Cat Cafe hadn't worked, I doubt I would have gone back. I probably would have done just something completely different. In fact, I'm in grad school for something completely different now. So,
do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So the Cat Cafe, like I said, has been going on for 8.5 years.
So let's one quick to give people perspective. There's the Cat Cafe.
That's right.
Which
That's
is kind of the Denver Cat Company.
That's
and then there's also a cat rescue, the Denver Cat Rescue. So give a quick idea about that, and then I want to circle back to what you're working on this other project too, because I want to make sure we put shine on all of these things. This is such a great conversation. So give us the background on those two items.
Okay, so Denver Cat Company, the Cat Cafe. This is on Tennyson Street. It's the concept is it's a coffee shop, and then there are cats just hanging out, and there's no kennels, so it's a free roaming space. You walk in and there's cats everywhere. We keep about 15-20 at a time. They're all rescues and they're up for adoption, and there's an entry fee. You pay an entry fee that helps us run the whole show, and there's some minor beverage and snack service. We can't be full service because of the health code, so we are limited in what we can serve, but it creates a cafe atmosphere where people can hang out in a clean, pleasant, cat catified environment with rescue kitties.
Yeah,
Get
and
to know
people
them.
need to check it out too, Leila, because when I
Yes.
saw it, it's not. And when you think of a cat rescue place, if
Yeah,
anyone's
yeah.
rescued a cat or a dog, they're there's cages and they're kind of white floors.
It doesn't smell good.
Doesn't
It's
smell
not
good.
really welcoming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a different deal. There's
Yes.
tables for people to sit, but then there's all this stuff for cats to climb on and places for them. Like,
Yes.
it's you're like you're in a cat jungle
I know.
almost of all their cool stuff. But it's very inviting.
Yes. It's supposed to be like a warm, welcoming, clean, good smelling space, kind of like someone's home, except, super cat centric. And then with, a bunch of cats who are hanging out and you can get to know them. So one of the beauties of this concept is that you can really get to know a cat's personality. Because, I've adopted cats from shelters before, and you go in and you meet the cat in a kennel, and it's really hard to tell what that cat would really be like because it's not free to roam around. It's not interacting with, you on a, in a natural way. So that is the most wonderful thing about it, is that you really get to know cats in their natural habitat, quote unquote. And it's also really great for people who have, family members who are allergic, can't have a pet, and they want to just come to a space and hang out with cats.
Oh, it's for that too. So
That
it's for
too, yes.
people to just get cat love
Yes.
if they're not going to
Yeah.
take a cat home.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, it's not really set up with the shelter intention, primarily. It's set up as more of a social space.
Oh,
So
I did
there's-
not realize
so
that. So cool.
yeah,
So
so
those
it's-
cats, that's
yeah.
their home.
Yes. I mean, it is until they get adopted,
Yeah.
and then we just circulate them through. But
Yep.
the idea is anyone who wants to come hang out with cats, be that cat lovers, students who are, wanting to come study with cats, who can't have cats in their dorms, people who are traveling, who want a cat fix, because that is very common, like tourists will come by. It's a huge draw for families because even if they have cats at home, they want to be able to play with multiple cats or, younger cats or more playful cats. There's such a wide market that it serves. Our demographic cuts across, all ages, all different kinds of people. And so that's set up like that. And the cats used to come from partnering rescues and shelters. So we would partner with neighboring or regional rescues. And we get our cats from them, and they would, act as the rescue component to our kind of social adoptive component. So, we're exposing the cats to a wide range of adopting populations who might find a good fit. And so it promoted adoption, but it was primarily set up as a social space. During the pandemic, I ended up running into that issue that everybody did, which is we started running out of cats because everybody wanted to adopt. And there was still a cat pipeline in other states that were overpopulated that needed some way to get to Colorado and get adopted, because bigger metro centers tend to have more adopting populations, and smaller rural areas tend to have more cat populations. So that mismatch is something we try to bridge. So I would go to, a place like Burlington, which is on the border of Kansas and Colorado, or a place like, Garden City, Kansas, where there's tons of cats that need adoption and don't have
And are they
adopters
feral
locally.
cats?
No, these are social community cats. They call them community cats if they're not feral. There's just, such a problem of cats breeding out of control, not being, no spay and neuter services in those areas.
Oh.
They end up just producing a lot of offspring, and then there's nowhere for them to go because these rural areas don't have enough adopters. Mm-hmm. So they usually then send cats to urban areas where there's, higher populations of people who want to adopt and lower populations of naturally breeding cats. Colorado, it gets cold in the winter. Cats don't survive outside. So we ended up becoming that conduit in that way of, being able to connect cats at high risk of euthanasia who are otherwise healthy, and being able to come here and get adopted in where there's a demand. So this was 3 years ago. I started during the pandemic, and grew it from there. So at first it was, just me, and I recruited fosters. So it's a foster-based rescue. And we have about maybe just over 100 foster families in the Denver metro area that help us out, who take in cats who come in from out of state, give them a soft landing, make sure they're healthy, in partnership with our vets at the Center for Animal Wellness. We just partnered with Rhino Vet for emergency care as well. So these are, it's a whole network that's been built locally with individuals who are an amazing community of people who have all come together to help these cats. They foster them for 2 or 3 weeks, make sure they're, doing well, and then they come take their turn at the cat cafe. They hang out there until they get adopted. and then we replace them with more. So it's
What's the time frame that a cat is usually there? And of course, different personalities of owners and cats and all that kind of stuff. But is there a time where a cat in that environment would be adopted faster than at a PetSmart, let's say, or at another typical cat shelter? Does it change the rate of adoption?
So we have an average rate of about one cat a day getting adopted. So we go over about close to 400 a year. And so that's a pretty good rate. Yeah. And we could go a little faster. We just have some bottlenecks, So we have only so many cats we can place in foster homes, and then they need to stay for at least 2 weeks so we can make sure. That's what we call a quarantine period. We want to make sure they're healthy, happy, there's no issues that need to be dealt with, and then they come to the cat cafe after that 2 or 3 week period of quarantining. And at the cat cafe, they usually get applications within a week, and then we take a minute to process them. We're pretty good about vetting our adopters to make sure they're a good fit and that they're responsible people who are going to take good care of the pet. And then, they get adopted out and we replace them with a new cat. So it's not a long period. Some cats stay longer than others. We do take in FIV positive cats because they have a harder time. They're kind of at very high risk of euthanasia. If people get to know their personality, they're more likely to adopt them than if they just see a picture and notice the cat is FIV positive. They'll just move on to a, healthier cat. So we're trying to sometimes adopt out senior cats with, those health issues. And so it can take a little longer to find the best fit, but they still have a better chance with us than they do, sitting in a shelter.
And they're all coming from the Denver Cat Rescue. So
yes, so the Denver Cat Rescue sources the cats,
yes,
and make sure that they're healthy and does all of the rescue side of things, and then they come and get hosted at the cat cafe, and that's So
do cat rescues network with each other? Like there was a cat rescue that a dear friend of mine, her name is Lisa Drummond. She and my wife have been friends for a long, long time. There was a cat rescue down off of Hamden and Wadsworth, a little cat rescue, and she was really running that thing in a lot of ways for a long, long time. Was it Life is Better? I don't remember the name of it, but it was right in that area. And so I know that she would have some of these deals oh man, we've got a little too many cats, and this was pre-pandemic. And so I didn't know if you guys would all talk and say, hey, totally. Okay, that's so cool.
What was her name? Do you remember?
Lisa Drummond.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's not somebody I know, but we also partner with a rescue right in that area at one point. But yeah, we definitely do. So for example, we got a cat in who was very feral. And another really great local rescue called Demi's, they took him in, and because he needed some rehabilitation on a one-on-one way that they had a way to do, we just didn't have that, in terms of behavioral stuff. So we will sometimes transfer cats back and forth depending on, and we get cats from Dumb Friends League. Denver Dumb Friends League has adults who get overlooked. Quite often, people come in and they just adopt the kitten. So, we have a really great success rate with adults. And so we get cats from them. So we're talking to each other and we're trying to see who has the best resources and set up for certain needs as they come up for us. There's also rescues that, specialize in working cats. So if you end up getting some, quite a feral cat, we might end up transferring that cat there just to, find the best fit for the cat. That's not going to work out in our system. We do well with typically adults who are very social, who get along with each other and with humans. And that's the environment of the cat cafe. It's very social. So yeah, different rescues serve different needs. There's so many great rescues in our, city. It's rife with animal lovers, and there's so much funding for this kind of thing locally too. So it's a good place to be in if you want to do this kind of work, because everybody appreciates what you're doing, supports it, and a lot of other people are doing similar work too. So you get to collaborate sometimes. Yeah. What's
the vision of the Cat Cafe and the Denver Cat Rescue for the future? Is it kind of thing like, hey, let's just keep doing what we're doing, or is there expansion to put more cafes out? What does that look like for you?
I've decided against expansion just because several other cat cafes did open in the area, and only in the last couple of years, post-pandemic. The pandemic, ironically, was my reason to get burnt out on it. And it was everyone else's reason post-pandemic to start something, because there was such a resurgence in economic activity, in 2021, because everybody was just so sick of the, life just paring back, and then they just wanted to come back from that. And so a cat cafe opened in Boulder, a cat cafe opened in Loveland, another cat cafe opened in Denver on the south side. So there's been enough, of the localities that were, say, about half an hour, 45 minutes away from us that are opening their own locations. And these are independent of us, obviously. But my thing was, I want to do what I'm doing well. I don't want to stretch myself even further and end up doing it poorly, because when there's animals and there's your staff, you want to be in a position that you can take care of things. And animals require a lot of taking care of. So when we were running the rescue as well as the cafe, and we were open 7 days a week, we're open 363 days a year. We close for Christmas and Thanksgiving only. It's a lot. It's a small staff still. It's a small business.
How many people?
So our cafe employs 5 people, and the rescue employs at this point 3, if you count me, and 2 coordinators. So it's really small. It's handling a lot of volume, and our fosters need support, our customers need support, our, staffing needs to be, always on point. We can't drop the ball. We really are a 24/7 business, and it's because of the cats, because, they don't really take the time off. When they need something, they need something. And I knew that if I tried, it doesn't scale very well. I knew if I tried to do another location, my problems would double.
Yes.
So I only had enough energy to do one location well, and I recognized that, and I was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't feel like, most areas that have sprung up with multiple cafes in, cities that are the size of Denver, they don't end up doing very well because there's only so much demand. So I can see those numbers because I'm in this industry from the beginning of it. We opened as the 3rd cat cafe in the country.
Wow.
This was 2 months after the first one opened. So we're very, very early on as a pioneering concept in the country. So I really know what it has looked like throughout this life cycle for everyone, because I consulted with a ton of cat cafes that open all over the country to tell them how to do it in their locations. And I've seen some cities like St. Louis, I think they have 3 or 4 cat cafes now, and none of them are busy. And, you kind of need to be, we pay our staff well. We want to make sure everybody's, the customers are getting good pricing on the service we're delivering. So we don't want to raise prices too much more. There's a cap on it in my mind. And we don't want to underpay staff. We don't want to turn into a factory. We want this to still be a good experience for everyone involved, including the cat specifically. So I knew that I didn't have the capacity for more, and I didn't want to outsource that to people who might quit. This is an issue that a lot of small businesses deal with, is staffing. My staff has been with me for a long time. My manager's been with me for 6.5 years. All of my staff has been with me for multiple years, but that's very unusual in retail, to find people who'll stick with you and be devoted to the cause and to the organization. Very rare in my industry.
Let's talk about that for a minute,
Yeah.
because I love how this conversation is weaving in and out with the theme being cats, but we're talking about your personal journey and pivoting all these things. I think there's gems in this for everybody to get, no matter if cats are your world or not. What were some of the business concepts that you learned in your attorney world that, or the how to run a business, that you now took into what you're doing with Cat Company?
I love that question. I'm sure you've picked up on this. When you learn to be any kind of professional, but especially if you learn to be a lawyer in America, you kind of learn how the world works. And it's really useful. It's very transferable. You pick up on all kinds of useful skills that you're going to be able to use forever in your life. And so I've never regret going to law school, and being in that world. It gave me so much confidence, first of all, to just realize I know how things work. I know how this is put together. All of our systems, legal, political, and business, all of it. And there's some degree of, imposter syndrome or uncertainty or, doubts about what you know and what you don't know, and what you don't know that don't know, like you don't even know the questions to ask before you get this kind of training. But after you do, and you work with big businesses and you work with corporations and you work with other smart people who really know how everything works, you kind of figure out what the parameters of things look like.
Yes.
And that was a really useful thing for me to figure out and have that confidence that I actually do know how things work. And if I don't, I never worry about asking a question and looking stupid, because I've been in rooms with CEOs and lawyers who are, at the top of their game and have been working for 20 years who've asked those questions. When they don't know, they just ask the question. It doesn't make you look dumb. It just makes you look like, nobody knows everything, but you know which questions to ask.
And it makes you look smart, because now you know the right questions to ask. Right. Like, oh, she gets it. Right. That's the right question that you want to be asking.
And this is not my area of expertise. Like, I recently actually bought the cafe building. I'd never done a commercial real estate transaction before. So, I learned a lot, but I was never intimidated by the bankers I was talking to. Commercial real estate is a different game. Like I've bought
Totally
two houses,
different.
but it's a totally different ballgame when you go into commercial. And the people you're dealing with are also kind of like lawyers. They're really smart. They're really cutthroat, and they don't have time to waste. They will let you feel stupid if you're being stupid. Like they don't have time for that. So, speaking with them, I was like, I don't know the answer to this question, but it's reasonable that I don't know. So I'm going to ask. And they spoke with me, very intelligently. It was not a conversation that intimidated me. So just losing that intimidation is enormous. Being able to go into a room and talk to just anyone about anything and ask the questions you don't know the answers to, that's enormous. Just in terms of
everyone can
confidence.
benefit from that skill.
Everyone.
Right? Of just
Yes.
being confident in
Yes.
even what you don't know. Be
Right.
confident in what you do know,
Right.
but in what you don't know, be confident. I don't
Right.
know it, so I'm going to ask you
Right.
the question because you do know it.
Yes.
So good.
Yes. And the clarity, just clarity in communication, clarity in intentions, being direct with what you can do and what you cannot do, being straight with people, treating them like intelligent human beings and treating them with dignity and respect. Like these are all life skills and, human connection and human fostering skills that I picked up on during my training and during my time at law firms, because you just learn how to be in the world. You just learn how to operate sensibly. And, people appreciate that when you do it. When you treat them well and when you give them the respect that they want and listen to them and don't patronize people, don't be, just don't be indirect and don't be insincere. All of that goes over wonderfully in fostering good relationships, and good relationships is what the world is built on.
Yes.
Like that's something that, has been a big principle of mine, is just care about your relationships, care about the foster families that we bring in, care about the people who are adopting, care about the customers, care about the staff. And that care has resulted in, a really solid basis for the entire network of relationships on which all of this depends. That's the longevity of it. So to go back to your earlier question, what's the future? The future is, as long as this keeps going, I'm very happy with it. And, it's being run by wonderful people. But I do realize that things like retail, things like cat rescue, all of this stuff never tends to be, or can be, but it doesn't always tend to be reliably, just indefinite.
Yep.
You don't know what's going to happen. COVID was a big lesson for me in that regard. Things were going really well for us. We were 5 years in, and then COVID hits and everything changes. The entire world changed. And I didn't see that coming. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
So that gives you a lot of humility, in how you predict the future. I just know I can't.
Yes.
All I can do is move with the changing times, move with the market, see what happens, and adapt if I can, or move on if I have to.
Another great lesson. So good. You're saying so many things that just trigger bells in my head for more and more questions, because what we're talking about now can apply in everything from other business relationships to teams to even individual and personal relationships. For the example, you said you want to take good care of people that are, involved in the businesses. And I would like to just talk for a minute about culture. I can tell without ever even talking to you about this before, culture is important to you. When you say that, you want it to be a good place to live, a good experience for everybody, cat-centric, but the people there, how do you get the people? Do you look for a certain type of person, and then do you do training, or what do you do to make sure that all this passion that you have for this excellence of experience for them and for the cat and for the customer is something that they feel too?
Oh my God. It's such a, it's a thing with a lot of moving parts, right? Like there's no real formula that you apply and it just works, and sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you end up with bad fits coming in and then, they find their way out. It's just how that goes. But I have noticed that it helps to put in what you want to get out. You treat people the way you want to be treated. You give them the respect of being professional and they'll give you the respect of being professional. What I look for is people who genuinely love being at the Cat Cafe. So pretty much everyone who's with me was once a customer. So that's how I hire. If you haven't been there, if you're just applying because it's another retail job you want to do or another coffee shop job you want to do, and you've actually never visited, you won't get hired. I want to know that you'll actually spend money to come into this place because you actually like it there. And then you'll get paid to be there. And why would you want to leave then?
Yes, so good.
So that's one reason. And then the other reason, I just pick the people who actually want to be there. And then the other reason, I make their lives easier. I don't act like, top heavy, super hierarchical boss who's like, no, you have to do this. And whether or not that works for you, you have to show up for these shifts, whether or not that's fitting your schedule with other work. I accommodate people. I give them the time off they want. I give them the shifts they want. I don't may leave people on call. I don't do that kind of stuff that leads to people burning out on these jobs, because they're not getting paid well and they're being driven like slaves. Like, why would this stay, right? So there's a culture of care. Basically, it's like their life satisfaction and their work satisfaction is important to me, and they know that. So they know whatever is gonna make their lives easier, and if I can make it happen, I would, So they stick around for that reason. Like, there's very few bosses out there who care about you as a person.
Yes,
so,
true.
And I've worked in very lovely environments where my bosses cared enough about me to write me letters of recommendation for law school, and I've also worked in environments where people didn't care about me, and that makes all the difference in whether you want to show up or not. And whether you want to leave or not, that support is everything for morale. So I just make sure people they feel cared for and they're happy.
I love that. What about volunteers? Is that part of what you guys do? A lot of volunteers, and what do volunteer programs look like in case anyone watching or listening wants to, call you or be part of the volunteer army?
For sure. And that's more on the rescue side, but we definitely have a huge volunteer network. The fosters are all volunteer based. So anybody who wants to foster a cat is a volunteer with us. They specifically sign up to take cats into their home and take care of them until they're ready for the cafe and up for adoption. And then we also have volunteers who do administrative tasks like process applications and, do other paperwork that they can do from home. And they just want to be involved in some way to help cats out. We have volunteers who help on transport days. So if, we just had 23 cats come in from Oklahoma on last Wednesday. And so we had some volunteers come in to, help out with paperwork and, transferring the cats to the fosters and so on, making food packets for them and stuff like that. And we have volunteers for events. So there's a sign-up process. You can go to denvercatrescue.org, sign up, to be a volunteer. Then you're contacted and placed according to your interest and what skills you have to offer. You're placed in a certain WhatsApp text chain where we post our needs, and you can pick up whatever you're able to. So it works like that. And one of our employees manages that.
And do you guys accept donations? Is that a company thing? You said that there's a lot of great funding, at least in Colorado, for these kind of projects. Do people generally do you guys do fundraising events, or do people just donate? How does the place get money besides having people come in and enjoy the cafe?
Right. So there's several avenues. We did a big push for Colorado Gives Day last year. I think it was December 6th. You must be familiar with that. We also have done events where we've done fundraising. So, we've done 2 annual events so far where it's actually combined as the cafe anniversary party plus, because our anniversary falls in December, plus the annual fundraising. And that's with silent auction, with ticketed sales. And then there's just general donations. We get a lot of donations just randomly from people on our website. We also have events off-site. So we've done a couple of brewery events this year where breweries will donate a portion of proceeds from their sales that day. Just one of those things that, we'll have an adoption set up at the same time. We'll bring in some cats. So that's been something. And then just private donations. There's a lot of, people who have accounts with Fidelity Charitable, and they just direct donations over to the rescue. Some of our fosters that are in that group. My future husband is in that group. I'm in that group. So, there's a lot of people who are big donors in the very small network that is, privately fostered by me over the last few years. But yeah, we rely on volunteers only on the rescue side, though, because the cafe is separate. It's a for-profit, and then we have employees on that end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of changing direction now, moving it back to the cats a little bit. Do you guys have a much of an issue with a return where a cat goes home with someone, they think that they know the cat, they've had a chance to interact with the kitten or the cat, and then it doesn't work out, compared to, let's say, one where they don't have the ability to see them interacting? They're in a cage and they hold them for 5 minutes and they say, yeah, this is the one for me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually don't know the rate of return at shelters compared to ours. Ours is fairly low. It does happen, and it happens due to not getting to know the cat well enough, but for other reasons, like the cat didn't integrate in a home very well. So the cat looks like it gets along with other cats or with dogs, and then you take it home, and it turns out not so much, because cats are territorial in a different way. Often the cat that they already had might not welcome a new cat. So it's something that you can't always predict. And some people are able to work with them, give them enough time to adjust, and some people just don't have the capacity for that. Or it's a situation that they don't want to make work, so they will bring it back. Our adoption contract does state that if something doesn't work out, you should bring the cat back to us. We have the first right of refusal. And that's just so that they don't end up in a shelter system.
Yes.
So they do come back to us. We make sure they're, replaced in a good home. It's not a big issue for us. We haven't seen an influx of returns the way that dogs did after the pandemic.
Really? Everyone wanted a dog because they were home,
Yes,
and then when they went back
yeah.
to work, then they didn't want the dog
Right,
anymore?
yeah,
Really?
that
I didn't know
happened.
that happened.
That happened.
That breaks my heart.
There was a huge amount of animals who were returned to shelters after people went back to work. But, cats are lower maintenance, and you can go back to work. They're not going to,
Yeah.
need that level of care and
Yeah.
daily presence the way dogs do. So that was less of an issue with cats. Still some. I heard about it. We didn't see that. We didn't see cats being returned, 2 or 3 years later. We've seen cats being returned, 2 or 3 weeks after adoption, when there's like suddenly a discovered issue that just wouldn't work for fit in that household.
Mm-hmm.
So not such a big deal. It's something we take totally in stride.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was wondering what was happening with that, because I did not think of the pandemic return for dogs, but I did think of if cats don't get along, or if they're starting to mark territories, or this and that. And so that led me to think, after, as you were answering this question, do you guys align or recommend, for lack of a better term, cat trainers? And I know people don't think that a cat could be trained, but there was a TV series on called My Cat from Hell. I don't know if you ever saw it, but
Galaxy,
right. So he would go into these
Yep.
places where these cats were just acting out, and then he would find out the why, like Caesar Milan and the dog whisperer. He was the kind of the cat whisperer person. Is that something that you guys as a group connect with? Because I know you have vets in your deal to help with care, but maybe between vets and trainers, vets are good sources for people to say, hey, you're looking for a new cat, go see these guys. And then trainers, if they say, if you're having an issue, go see these guys. Is that part of what you do?
We would love to do more of that, actually. I do have a cat behaviorist that I've referred people out to. It's been a while since I've done that. I actually can't remember her name off the top of my head, but we would love to have more contacts like that. If there are cat behaviorists out there who want to get in touch and say, we are actually available for this kind of referral service, we would love to, because I do think there's a real room for that. I actually did a cat behavior training at the Denver Dumb Friends League right when I was starting the cat cafe. And the guy who did that, he was awesome, but he's moved to Iowa since, so there's places that have in-house big outfits like the Denver Dumb Friends League that have, cat trainers in-house and cat behavior experts in-house who work with their cats and work with people who are, need that kind of assistance. I do think there's room for that. And we have general tips and tricks, including by people like Jackson Galaxy, that we pass along to our adopters when they face very specific issues. For example, how to integrate. So we have those tricks of, feed them on opposite sides of the door so they get used to each other's smell, and move the bowl eventually closer to the door, then you eventually open the door. So as they're eating and have those positive associations with each other of food, and don't feel threatened, they might get to know each other and enjoy each other's company more instead of being, hostile. So there's little tips and tricks that behaviorists have developed that we can pass along to our, adopters on very general issues. But then, of course, there's very unique individual things that come up with cats that might need expert help. And for that, I would love to have more regular referrals. It does come up pretty rarely in our case. It's not that common to, face issues that are just super unique and unusual, so that we can't give advice. We're there to give advice on everything else. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you try to match personalities externally? Like if I were coming to adopt a cat, so you're saying I could interact with a cat and this one feels right to me, but you may go, wait a minute, from what the questionnaire you filled out or from some other metrics, you're going to go, well, you need to know that Susie cat over here might not be as good as Tom cat for you.
Totally. Sometimes, yes. So there are times when, we see, for example, somebody might come in and they already have a dog or they already have a cat, and we know a certain cat they're trying to adopt does not get along with other pets in the house. It needs to be an only cat. And in that case, we will advise people. And they do listen to us. Sometimes people are like, no, I'll make it work. I really love this cat. It's like, okay. We also try to match energy levels sometimes. Like, we don't want to place, a really energetic younger cat in a single person household who works outside the home, full time. There's going to be not enough interaction, not enough stimulation for that cat in that home, stuff like that. So we do try to advise people to have the best pick. At the end of the day, though, it's their choice, and all they can do is give that advice. We will rarely not approve an adoption unless, there's reasons of like not being able to provide proper care for a cat. We will mostly approve people who are otherwise responsible, who are, able to care for a pet and are clearly providing a good home, and leave it up to them what they're looking for.
I love it, man. Cat lovers, get down there, get yourself a cat. I wanted to now kind of bring this all the way back to where we started. What are you working on outside? You said you're taking some either courses or doing something and I don't know if it's related to what you're doing or a whole separate venue, like another little mini pivot in your life. Talk about that for a minute, because I'm just always excited to hear what people are learning.
Yeah. So I started this year, I started going to grad school, went back to grad school for a counseling degree. And I'm doing that at Europa University in Boulder. And the reason for that, twofold. One, my personal mental health journey has been really fascinating to me. I used to be a pretty depressed, pessimistic, and, kind of a Debbie Downer kind of person.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't come out at all.
Because it's gone. Strangely.
Man.
I changed. And, finding my path to being an optimistic, very cheerful, very happy person it made me realize that this kind of change in a person is possible.
Was there one thing that led you to that? One
a few things.
Aha moment?
A few things. One was, changing my work. Honestly, that really helped. I realized how much of my unhappiness was actually coming from objective reasons, like my day-to-day life was hard. So that obviously leads to being unhappy. There's a real reason for it, but also your outlook, what you choose to focus on. I did something so simple. I kept a gratitude journal for 3 months. Every night I had to write down like a few good things that had happened that day. And it got my mind to noticing the good instead of dwelling on the bad, because I knew I would have to recall them later in the evening. So it really shifted my mindset. And this is like a neuroplasticity thing. You can actually change your mind physically. You can change it by doing certain things. So if you do, this is a very proven thing. People have done studies on this. If you do focus on what you're grateful for, you're less likely to be dwelling on what you're not happy about. And that really changes your outlook. It changed my outlook. I became an optimistic and happier person. It was like a miracle. And then the Cat Cafe made me really happy. Doing something meaningful with your life, with your time, feeling that positive connection with your community, which we all lack nowadays, having some kind of a way of being in touch with your greater community that makes you feel like a part of something bigger than yourself. And, contributing to something bigger than yourself is so important for humans. And we lack that in a lot of our lives in America today. So getting that aspect of it, and then over time, just figuring certain things out, getting older, getting wiser, getting smarter about stuff. So that journey was very, eye-opening for me. I realized not only is change possible, not only can you be a happy person, this is not just chemicals in your brain that you're just doomed to suffer with. You can actually do something about that. Made me develop a really big interest in that kind of wellness, that kind of self-care. And I realized I wanted to help other people get there, because there's so many people who need this kind of help. So that planted the seed in my mind for a while ago. And then, as I said before, you never know if something like the Cat Cafe is going to keep going forever. So I needed, a new career at some point. This has been my interest for a long time. So I, went in that direction, just thinking about it. And then I started meditating. And my mother was really sick, and she ended up living in my house for a while. And it made me very depressed again. And I was unable to get out of bed. I was really just depths of despair, because being a caretaker is really hard. And I ended up going on a meditation retreat at the Drala Mountain Center, which is near Red Feather Lakes, near Fort Collins. And it's a beautiful retreat center. And the meditation retreat changed my life. It was so impactful in how it built up resilience and reduced my anxiety and just generally helped me deal with everything in my life that was challenging, that I realized that if I'm going to go in the mental health field, it has to be from the perspective of incorporating mindfulness practices. Europa is really famous for that. They're connected. They were founded by that Mount Center, and Europa are founded by the same person, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who was a Tibetan monk who brought a strain of meditation and Buddhism to the States that's still going strong 50 years later. And I realized that's going to be my passion, my new home. That's where I'm going to learn how to help people through meditation, through, mental health techniques that actually are proven to work for people's happiness and increasing their joy in their lives. So that's the new path now. I'm in my second term. It's really busy. I'm lucky enough that, I have enough staff being, responsible for the day-to-day of the rescue and the cafe that I can take the time to do this. And it's also really good for me just, to have something to chew on mentally that's not cats.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
That's so good. Well, and again, it speaks to not only pivoting out of necessity for your mental health, but now pivoting towards something.
Yes.
And I think there's a difference. Like if we need to pivot away or pivot toward, I think that's great. I want to end with one more question.
Yes.
Is there one piece of advice? You've had this incredible journey. And along the way, has someone given you one piece of advice, or you've picked it up where you say, for me, this is like the fundamental capstone of who I am, that you would share with me and with our audience?
Oh my gosh, there's many things. Which one is the most important?
Or that you feel the most connected with? Whatever that you think that we could all benefit from.
I really believe in, doing your best. Do good work. Deliver your best product. Deliver your best. Wake up and just do your best. Like, don't half-ass it. Don't be a slacker. Don't let people down. Be responsive to them and be, just do what your obligation is. Fulfill your obligation. Show up. Those are some of the key things I try to remind myself of, is just, care about what you're doing and do it well, because it shows. And I've noticed this after the pandemic, especially. Like, there has been such a decline in the standards that everybody used to uphold. Everybody kind of let go. I think we got exhausted, and it's very understandable. We all were on a kind of a cultural burnout. The entire world burned out, having to keep up with homeschooling children while doing remote work. That was a new learning curve everybody had, and worrying about this disease and not being able to have any vacations or everybody burnt out, and then standards just declined. I've noticed this decline in many areas where people just aren't doing as well as they used to, and nobody's upholding those standards. So be the person who's still upholding some standards, deliver good customer service and be a good person, and don't just slack because you can. Do better.
Man, that's good. That's good. So one more time for people who would want to reach out to you, Leila, and talk with either you or your group about how they could get involved one way or another with the exceptional work that you guys are doing.
You can send us an email, or you could go to our website and go from there. DenverCatCo.com is for the Cat Cafe. DenverCatRescue.org is for the cat rescue. And there's resources there for you to be able to contact us, reach out, help in any way, donate, whatever.
Leila, this has been a joy for me. Thank you so much for investing what obviously is super precious resource for you, time, with all the things you've got going on. It means the world to me. And I just want to again say thank you and wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
All right. And for those of you watching or listening again, I think you got connected with me that this woman's got it going on. What she's doing is amazing. Please, please, please support her work, and share this episode. And if there's something that you want us to, a guest that you want us to talk to, or a topic you want us to investigate and share with you of someone making a difference, let us know. You can always reach me, jim@ramoslaw.com, with those ideas. And in the meantime, always remember, you too can make a difference.